आप बैनुल अक़वामी क़वानीन की धज्जियां उड़ाने देंगे हिंदुस्तान को, तो कल कौन से ममालिक उस पर चलेंगे? जिसकी मर्जी चाहे फिर कहेगा ये गई कन्वेंशन, दीज टू हेल विद द जिनीवा कन्वेंशंस। सो अगर आप पूरे सिस्टम को जो बैनुल अक़वामी क़वानीन के हैं, एक सिस्टम बना हुआ है, उसको तबाह करना चाहते हैं, तो फिर आप हिंदुस्तान को करने दें जो कर रहे हैं। लेकिन अगर आप इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी बिलीव्स कि देयर आर इंटरनेशनल लॉज, देयर आर इंटरनेशनल कन्वेंशंस, और जैसे हमें यूरोपियन यूनियन जीएसपी प्लस पे ह्यूमन राइट्स के इश्यूज रेज करता है, तो फिर दुनिया को हर ह्यूमन राइट्स इशू पे बात करनी चाहिए। ये नहीं कि पाकिस्तान के लिए आप इतनी चीजें करें, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान जो ऑक्यूपाइड टेरिटरी में कर रहा है उसको आप इग्नोर करें, क्योंकि ऑक्यूपेशन के खास तौर पे कन्वेंशंस हैं, जैसे फोर्थ जिनीवा कन्वेंशन, इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस की जजमेंट्स हैं, खास तौर पे जो उन्होंने पैलेस्टीनियन वॉल पे दी है। सो the judgments of the international community are there, especially the ICJ. The international media has been talking about what is happening. We now demand that the international community, especially the UN and human rights organizations, raise the issue of Dr. Asya Andrabi before the sentencing, because the sentencing, if it comes, is, in my view, and if you look at international law, according to international law, it is nothing less than judicial murder. इस पे कोई दो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं है। अगर आप फोर्थ जिनीवा कन्वेंशन पढ़ें, जो हिंदुस्तान डॉक्टर आसिया अंद्राबी के साथ करने को जा रहा है वो जुडिशियल मर्डर है, तो क्या दुनिया इसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेगी और चुप करके बैठी रहेगी? ये सवाल से मैं आपके पास आज छोड़ना चाहती हूँ। और अब मैं फ्लोर दूंगी आसिया अंद्राबी साहब के साहिबा के बेटे को कि वो बताएं उनका पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस क्या रहा है।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's come here today. So, as Ma'am Shereen Mazari rightly gave an overview of the case. So, I was born in the year 1999, and 7 years before my birth, my father spent 7 years before my birth in prison. And it was in 1992 for the first time that my father, along with my elder brother, who was an infant at that time, and my mother, they were detained on the Srinagar airport. Now, my brother at that time was 6 or 7 months old, and he became Kashmir's youngest political prisoner, if you want to call it. But little did he know that one day he would be the son of Kashmir's longest serving political prisoner as well, because as ma'am said, my father has been behind bars for more than 26 years now, more than 27 years. So in 1999, within 2 months of my birth, after 2 months, my father was detained. I don't have any memories of it, naturally, and ever since that day he's been behind bars. And the only time I have seen him has been in the guise of a prisoner. The only time I have spoken to him has been in prison. The only time I have ever felt his touch has been in prison. And after father's detention, it was mother basically who looked after us, who raised us. And we grew up in hideouts because father was involved in resistance movement, and then my mother Asya Andrabi, along with her other associates, she was involved in the resistance movement. So we had to grow up in hideouts, and for the first few years of my life, my mother's real name was kept from me. I didn't know who she was because of the fear and because of the insecurity that was attached to her name, because she feared that if I were to tell someone that my mother is Asya Andrabi, it would lead to her arrest. And that is something that used to happen. The Indian police used to come visit our schools, and they used to interrogate my brother about the whereabouts of mother. This was after father was detained. And once she was there for us, she became everything for us. She was the one who cooked for us, cleaned for us. She was the one who tried to fulfill the void that my father had left in our lives. But then it was in 2006 that I've orphaned. And I was not an orphan. Both my parents were alive, but the Indian state made me feel like an orphan despite the fact that both my parents were alive. And I remember asking my mother, I used to ask her, why exactly is our father in prison. I was 6 or 7 at that time. At that time, we don't understand how occupation works. At that time, we don't understand why the Indian state is in Kashmir. And she used to tell me that my father is in jail because he did not do his homework. Because that was the only thing that could make sense to me as a child. And I thought, okay, that is why my father is in prison, क्योंकि उन्होंने homework नहीं किया. And there was this one time when I was missing my father and I deliberately skipped my homework, thinking this was the only way I could be with him. But that did not happen. And that is when I realized that it's not about homework, it's about something else. And then mother was detained as well, and ever since 2016, she has been in and out of prison. And she has spent 12 years of her life in prison. And mahine mein, once in a month I get to talk to her for 5 or 10 minutes. And even in those 5 or 10 minutes, the policewoman stands beside my mother, constantly reminding her of the fact that her time is running out. And it's in these moments that we feel how occupation kind of interferes in the most intimate and personal spheres of your life. I mean, why do these foreign or these alien forces think, or why do they feel entitled to deciding how long can a son speak to his own mother? And even when we used to go to prison to see my father, even the duration of hugs was regulated. After a certain point of time, you were told to separate. So I speak to my mother once in a month, and she is 60 now, and I am 20, and we have barely spent some years together. And now that she is 60 and she is ill and she is in prison, it feels like the final stage of her life is already here, and I haven't yet spent any part of my life with her at our home. So this is something that, and this is not just my story, what I'm telling you is something that many other children in Kashmir go through as well. It's not just my story, people have had it worse, but I have this privilege of talking to you, I have this privilege of telling you how life is for us under occupation. So my mother always used to tell me that I used to ask her why our life is not normal, because it never felt normal. And she used to tell me that our life is normal, and I could never make sense of it. कि अबू नहीं है घर पे, तो ये कैसी life normal है. But then as you grow up, you realize that when you talk about life under occupation, if you live happily, being under occupation, it's abnormal. If you're indifferent to the oppressed right to self-determination, and in this pursuit of self-determination, some of them end up in prisons, some of them end up in graveyards. But it's very human, because life under occupation is not normal. It's not normal as once in a month. And उस टाइम पर भी वो जो 10 मिनट है, उस टाइम भी पुलिस वाली साथ खड़ी होती है, बताती है आप क्या बात कर सकते हैं, क्या बात नहीं कर सकते अपनी माँ